Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Emike Osuma. I am your storyteller, serving you inspiration, wisdom nuggets that help you stay on course with God's original design for your life. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back here. And for the first time, as those just tuning in for the very first time, I'd like to welcome you specially. I do not take your coming here for granted at all. Thank you so much. Now we are gradually wrapping up our marriage lesson series video. And I think after this video, we're going to be doing the last one. Okay, but in this particular video, I am going to be compressing several lessons in one video. I'll be taking them in bullet points because if I have to do one video per lesson, I don't think we'll be done even in March 2023. So I just thought to do that so we can wrap it up and move on to other content on this channel. So if you are ready to dive into what we have today, you want to hear what I'm sharing today, you're ready to learn a thing or two, do not go away. I'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with me. So we're diving right into today's lesson. So I'm having several lessons that I'll be sharing in this video. I'm not sharing one lesson per video like we did when we just started out with this series, right? So that we're able to finish, okay? But if you have questions, feel free to ask. Leave your questions in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer you. You could also send a DM if you don't want to make your questions public. On my Instagram handle is on the screen. You can send a DM there. You could also send an email to the email address that will be sliding on your screen right after you see the my Instagram handle, right? So diving in very quickly, first on today's video is this. Take responsibility for your growth and development in marriage. As a married person, take responsibility for your growth and development. Growth and development and your spiritual capacity, your mental capacity, they are not sexually transmitted. Aha. I'm sure you heard that loud and clear. They are not sexually transmitted. They are not going to suddenly become yours because you're married to this person who is so enlightened, who is so spiritually sound. You still have to put in the work, right? When I got married, my husband was my pastor on campus, right? And it was this pastor that I revered so much, I respected so much, was such an amazing person. Whenever I preached the word, everybody was on fire. Whenever I sang, oh my God, there were miracles. I remember I had a very major miracle from one of his services where he just worshipped and just began to lay hands on us. He didn't even know I had this particular health challenge, and after the prayer meeting, that thing disappeared. It was recurrent. It's been like almost 20 years now. It never came back, not for a second. So, when you're married to that kind of person, you can erroneously walk into that marriage feeling like, oh, I'm married to this person, I'm married to Pastor T. I don't even need to do any work, I'm just going to be sorry, it will just be, Rema will just be dancing in the sky, in the atmosphere of our home. I'll just be catching it effortlessly. It will just be, soaking into my head, just entering my spirit. Like, my people, I was in for a shocker. I realized that, see, that you marry this your Pastor T does not mean that you're going to automatically begin to crack Rema. You need to continue to sit by yourself with your table and chair. That is one thing that is not transferable in marriage. Your relationship with God is not transferable in marriage, right? So for guys who marry and say, oh, I want to marry a girl who is such a powerful prayer warrior, I want her to be praying for me, you are missing out. You're like somebody who's taking a chair and who says, okay, I'm going to just step aside. My friends will eat for me. When they eat and get filled, I'm going to feel full also. That does not happen. It doesn't happen. You're going to be missing out on the victories you could have been an active participant in. You're going to be missing out on all the bounties that God has in store for you. You will miss out on that, the beautiful relationship you could have owned with God. Yes, your wife could pray for you. You could see victories. You could celebrate promotions at work because your wife was praying. But then you are missing out on that experience that God wants every child of God to have. And you are going to shut yourself out. You will always be a bystander. You will always be an outsider to the things that are rightfully yours. So marriage is not any different. It will not give you that. It will not just give you an automatic pass to all the spiritual resources in the world if you do not sit down, sit with your table and chair and put in the work. I had to realize that, hey, this automatic rema is not coming from anywhere. I have to sit down, I have to learn, I have to put this word to work by myself, right? So it's your responsibility that you're married to a bishop or a reverend or whatever the title is. It does not mean you're automatically going to be having sparks and fire popping out of your head. You must keep chasing your growth by yourself. Never forget that. Now the next one, in-law relationships. I know this one is hot cake. In-law relationships. You know, sometimes we make mountains out of molehills, right? We magnify things unnecessarily, and then they blow out of proportions. Okay, leave molehills as molehills. Don't make them mountains. Remember that in your family, your birth family, you have challenges, you have misunderstandings, you fight with your siblings, but you guys make up and move on. But when we are married, I don't know why we see things differently. Like because we had a fight, you now conclude that, oh, that my in-law is bad. Because you had a misunderstanding, you conclude that, oh, even me, I'm a bad wife. Wow, I'm a bad husband. I don't even have sense. And then you begin to have this friction that becomes a um permanent position or permanent position between you and your in-laws. It doesn't have to be that way. When there's been an issue, learn to deal with it because it is also a real relationship, right? Like you had with your siblings. Deal with it. Do not magnify it unnecessarily. Deal with it and move on. Okay? Deal with it and move on the way you do with your own siblings. Don't let it become one big thing like, oh, you now label the person, oh, this my in-law is this, or you even label yourself because you made a mistake with your in-laws. No, do not magnify any little issue. There are so many examples, but I'm not able to go into. They're flying up and down in my head right now, but that's what I'm just trying to say. Don't let matters die, right? Let them die. Do not build a monument out of it. You do not build monuments out of every challenge, every misunderstanding you have with your siblings, right? And with your birth family. Don't do that in your marriage family. Now, the next one I want to talk about is this. It's connected to the previous point I shared about in-laws. I want you to remember that your relationship with your in-laws will not grow overnight. No relationship grows overnight. But it's amazing how that, I don't know if it happens around the world, but I think in Africa where I live, um, it's such a draining and exhausting expectation we just put on ourselves. Like you come into a family, you expect that overnight they're going to treat you like a daughter. That does not happen anywhere. Or they expect that, oh, because you married their son, overnight you're going to act like their child. It can't happen that way. I remember when I was preparing for this video, I wrote these notes down. I was asking myself what I'm about to share. Will anybody relate with this? Will they understand this? I was amazed when I went on YouTube, and I'm sure a lot of you watching, you know, the Secret Place wife, right? She's a marriage counselor. She shares on marriage and relationships and all that. Very inspiring woman, and she talked about this particular thing. I was like, oh wow, that just gave me some more confidence to go and share this. Okay, so um, she said that it took you the number of years that you are or that you were before you got married to blend into your family. You had real organic moments where your family learns to show you unconditional love. Trust me, your in-laws do not owe you unconditional love just because you married their son. They would have to know you through an unforced organic process. Sometimes it will not even take 5 years. It may take the length of your marriage. I've been married for 14 years. For me, it may have taken that 14 years, and we are still on the journey. We are still getting better, right? So don't expect that you walk in and everything will just happen overnight. Okay? It will not happen overnight. I remember the first time, my first Christmas with my in-laws was my very first Christmas as a married person. We spent it with my in-laws. I was so nervous. Excuse me. I was so nervous. I'm naturally performance conscious. I believe so much in acceptance, in people accepting me based on what I've done, right? So I was so nervous. So on our first night there, I was asked to make eba for dinner. Eba, or my people, if you're watching this, you're not Nigerian. Eba is like it's a meal. It's a popular dish. Normally, most of the time, used eating as dinner in Nigeria. It's made out of cassava, right? So and you eat it with any soup of your choice, right? So when I was asked to make this is what I've been making since I was like maybe 11, 10, maybe even 9. So why was I freaking out? Why? Because of that pressure, that in-law pressure. I want to please them. I made the worst kind of ever that night. It was horrible. Like I couldn't even believe my eyes. My mom would have looked at me and she'd be like, who did it? This was not you. No, she will not even believe I made that. But I made it. I thank God my parents-in-law were gracious enough not to nag or complain or say anything about it. I went to bed feeling so bad, right? And every time we visited, I was always jittery about entering the kitchen. I was still conscious because we were still forming a relationship. Anyone who would have expected me then to just enter the kitchen, oh, jump around, hop about the house, that would have been a very unfair expectation. I put that on myself, and I don't. If any of my in-laws was expecting me to do that, that was very unfair at that time. But guess what? Fast forward to 14 years later, today, I can go to my parents in law's house. I will make breakfast, lunch, dinner. I will not, as in with my full chest, like we say in this part of the world, I would make breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But did I arrive there overnight? No. It took time. It was a process. So never forget that. Don't put yourself under undue pressure and you'll miss out on the beautiful relationship you could actually have when you eventually arrive there organically. So don't try to come, you are kneeling down. Are you going to kneel down? What you are not going to continue, don't start it. You kneel down to greet all the uncles, all the aunties. Why? Because you want to fit in overnight. You did not become a part of even your birth family overnight, right? You didn't settle into that birth family overnight. It took you those number of years. So free yourself from that undue pressure. Free yourself from that undue pressure. I had to learn this over time. I had to realize that, hey, this was not going to happen overnight. And I began to allow myself to grow, right? Now, like they say, you are not responsible for how other people act towards you, whatever other people's expectations are, but you are responsible to how you respond. You are responsible for how you feel. Okay, so I realized I was responsible for my journey. I had to allow myself, I had to pace myself and live one day at a time. It's 14 years later. Well, I'm not where I was when I just got married or when it was 2 3 years into my married life, right? And also give your in-laws some credit. Okay, that your husband chose you doesn't mean that they're going to automatically choose you. Your husband's conviction, or even you, the wife, your conviction about this person being your spouse is like a burning bush moment that Moses had. It was Moses and God alone. So he needed to walk through process with the children of Israel. They needed to see proof. They needed to see the hand of God for them to believe that, oh, this guy is saying something right. He's saying something reasonable. He actually had an encounter and we should actually listen to him. So in the same way, your in-laws, they need time. They need to see proof. They need to see your fruit, right? Supporting why their son or their daughter choose you. It will not happen overnight. In fact, even with how even after Moses took the children of Israel through those 10 plagues, when they got to the wilderness, they still turned back. They still had moments where they fought him and all that. And again, God kept giving them signs to show that I was the one who sent Moses. I am the God who is with you. You are not here on your own. So please, these wonderful relationships we dream of or we pressure ourselves into trying to forge with our in-laws, they do not happen overnight. They will happen with time organically, right? Never you forget this. And then to the next lesson here, focus on this is also about dealing with in-laws, right? Because it is a major thing we all have to deal with in our marriages. It's one major source of conflict also, sadly, right? But if we get these things right, especially if you're watching, you're just getting married or you're about to get married, you will not need to go through what many of us or other people went through, okay? Now, while trying to please your in-laws, while trying to maybe carry out an assignment or a task, do not focus on the process or the method. Focus on the end. Now I'll explain. Now, because we all have different cultural backgrounds, we all raised differently in different environments, different societies with different ideologies, right? We would not arrive at the same end with the same process. Now, let me explain what I mean by this. I'll give you a scenario. Now, in my home, I started pounding yam at age 12, right? So I grew up, I was the first person to start pounding yam of all my siblings. So I just discovered that I loved it. I enjoyed it, and I loved the result of the pounding. Okay, and I now became the default person who pounded in our home. Even when I was in the university, when I come home to visit, I stayed on campus. When I come home to visit, my mom would not even ask me. She won't tell me, "Oh, I'm going to put yam on the fire." Because I'm around, she would just put yam on the fire and tell me, "Oh, the yam is almost ready. Oh. We're pounding yam for your dad." And even when I was tired, because I enjoyed it, I would still go into the kitchen. I would pound the yam. So I loved that. And whenever I pounded them, it came out really nice. It was always smooth and very starchy, and you would enjoy it. So I just loved it. But then I think this was one thing my husband loved while we're courting. So I think he told his mom, "Oh, that this girl I'm about to marry, she loves to pound. She makes the best pounded yam." So fast forward to a few couple of years later, I had visited. It was my brother-in-law's traditional wedding. So in his house, they had his parents were there, aunties were there. The house was full of people, and I had just come in from a trip. I had come in from Edo State to attend the wedding. So I met that they were about to pound. They had put this yam on the fire, and then they're like, "Hey, you are here. Welcome. Oh. Come and help us pound." Oh. They gave me the mortar. Oh. My people, I'm not even exaggerating. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating this, but the way it looked was like a tuber of yam was just cut into four parts and it was boiled and packed into the mortar, everything, and I was giving the person. Ah, my people, I struggled. I struggled, like my goodness. I had immediately my blisters, my hands began to form blisters. This is someone who has been pounding since 12. And I'm talking about he at that time, I think I was like 24 or 25. Yeah, I just turned 25 at that time. So you can imagine, I was like, what's going on? It was such a struggle. And I think one of the aunties had to rescue me, like, "Oh, don't worry, let me finish it." And at that time, I felt bad because in their eyes, I looked like, this girl that cannot even pound, she cannot even do anything. But look at what was different. Now, what they wanted was pounded yam, but our process at arriving at enjoyable pounded yam was different. In my own home, we cut yam to very small pieces and I pound in two batches. I never cut my yam big. My mom never did that. And we do not pack everything to the mortar. So I was able to pace myself and pound, and enjoy the process. At the end of the day, whether I pounded three batches, five batches, we all had pounded yam that was enjoyable. But for them, they did not cut yam into small pieces. So it made me look as though I didn't know how to pound. What I learned from that was that instead of focusing on, oh, I'm not going to pound again, I told myself if I'm ever going to pound again here, for my in-laws, I know they want to eat pounded yam. I will do it on my terms. I will not sweat over, oh, I must do it the way they do it. Then I'll keep getting stressed. No. The next time I pounded for my parents in law, I pounded on my terms. I pounded the way we pound in my house, and they had enjoyable pounded yam, and that was solved. So sometimes we waste our energy on, we are sweating it out over the process. We are trying to focus on, oh, this is how they want me to do it. Because we're coming from different backgrounds, truth is that you may not be able to do it the way they want you to do it. But what you should focus on is, can I achieve the result I desire? Yes. If you can't achieve it in a more stressless way, by all means, go through that route and achieve it and save yourself unnecessary stress. Some of these things there with in-laws, they're not that deep, right? So that was one of the lessons I learned. I hope that you have learned a thing or two in the course of these videos. I have been delighted to share this, to bring you so close to my personal space to share these lessons. I'm praying and hoping that you're able to learn, you're able to transfer these principles to your own life and to avoid unnecessary stress that some of us even still had to go through because we did not really have anyone telling us these things, right? Thank you so much for watching, for staying with me till the end. I look forward to bringing more videos your way. Until then, remember what I like to say: keep choosing love, life, and peace. Because really, you have a choice, and we live in a world with all sorts of options. But you are the one to keep insisting that I'm going to choose love, I'm going to choose life, I am going to choose peace. Thank you for staying with me. God bless you.